Green Purple Luffy is the new leader in the EBO2 set. Due to high power level and consistency, he became one of the top picks in the current meta very quickly. And today we will take a look what makes the deck so strong and how to simply pilot it for the success. Let's start by explaining the leader's effect to further understand the strategy and deck building criteria for this leader. So it's very simple, 5000 2 colors leader, and as in the most cases 2 colors equal 4 life leader. Very interesting effect, activate main once per turn. If we return 2 Dawn and we have only Straw Hat crew type characters in play, we set up to 2 of our rested Dawn cards as active, and then this leader gets plus 1000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So what can we directly see? Two very strong things in One Piece card game. We have Dawn cheating and base power of leader being increased for the turn of our opponent. So the example usage of the effect would be, let's say I played some 4-cost character, I have 4 Dawn rested, and if I activate the effect, I choose which 2 to return. So let's say I return them to the deck, and then I can set 2 Dawn as active. Obviously, if I have any Dawn attached to any of the characters, I can use them for the Dawn -2 cost. And then if I have at least 2 rested, it's very efficient to restand them. Then our leader gets plus 6000 power because on our board we have only Zorojuro, which is a Straw Hat indeed. And in this way we have 2 additional Dawn to use, either to attach for attacks or to develop more characters. However, we can directly see a downside, that the next turn we are again back to the 4 Dawn. So even though we get a little bit of cheating early, we are setting ourselves behind efficiently 1 turn of Dawn. So at a first glance, leader seems balanced. Okay, we have green and purple that are strong colors, but the effect itself has a downside. Everything should be fine until 10 Dawn turn, or the turns when we can take the loss of 1 turn of Dawn. We need to wait and turtle up. However, here comes our win condition, that is also one of the cards already released in the EBO2, and this is Sanji and Pudding. You probably already heard about this card. If you are new or beginner player, maybe didn't have a time to check it yet, it's very powerful engine for the Luffy to dominate the meta and every game where you are able to draw it and play. 5 cost 7000 power. This is already the strongest stat line in the game for any vanilla card. So putting it on a card that has on top of that an effect is very broken. And we can see the only price for that is no counter power, but this is okay. So we can just play it on curve, 5 Dawn turn, just play 7000 body is always good, even if we don't use the effect. But the effect itself is broken for Green Purple Luffy, because on our turn, once per turn, when 2 or more Dawn cards on your field are returned to Dawn deck, add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So basically, this is the effect that mitigates our downside of leader's effect of returning 2 Dawn, because in effect at the end of our turn we will have not deficit of 2 Dawn but 1, and on top of that this Dawn also comes back as active. So if we mix it with our leader's effect, in the same turn we will still have 3 Dawn to use 6000 power leader after playing the 5 cost body. Later we will go through particular playlines with Sanji and Pudding. For now the important information is that we have a nice way to dominate the mid game with this card and get a lot of value. because the effect is not limited just for the one Sanji and Pudding. If we play multiple of them on the field, then each of them will return us 1 Don when we use leader's effect. There is also secondary effect on Sanji and Pudding, and this is on-play effect that if number of Don cards on our field is equal or less to the number of our opponent's field, then we draw 1 card. And this is very smart because after we play the first Sanji and Pudding, and even if we use the effect, then our Don count will be the same as our opponent. It means if we follow up on the next turn with another Sanji and Pudding, then we will be drawing a card on top of all other advantages. And then we have a Luffy package, and it contains of the new secret rare 6 cost 7000 power Luffy and Luffy Taro from ST18. So why those 2 cards are important, and they are also part of the win condition, if you will, even though Sanji and Pudding is the most important card in the deck, it has some really nice synergy with those 2 characters. First of all, the new shiny toy that is Monkey D. Luffy, secret rare. If your leader is multicolored and your opponent has 5 or more Dawn cards that playing 6 cost normally our opponent will be, this character gains rush. So already a 6 cost 7000 power rusher, even you play him on curve or whatever, very strong. But on top of that, when attacking once per turn, we may return 2 of our active Dawn cards to our Dawn deck and then set this character as active. Afterwards, we add 1 card from the top of our life cards to our hand. So very strong finisher. If we don't have any life cards, we can still use the effect because this second part of the effect, like I said, is part of the effect, it's not the cost. So if our opponent pushes us and we take all the cards to the hand, then there is no downside. And sometimes we want to use the effect to draw a card from our life to have more options depending on our opponent strategy. And this is a card that is custom made for this leader because think about it, when we use leader's effect, we restand 2 Dawn. So we have directly 2 Dawn active to restand the Luffy. Important thing to note here is that this Luffy, even if you just play him for the rush, is enough because effect is when attacking. So once you see the window to use it, maybe as finisher or maybe to clear opponent's board with multiple swings, then you can use it. But if you play it on curve or if you play it after your Sanji Pudding, then there is no rush to use the when attacking effect. You can just place him as another threat on board if your Sanji and Pudding stick. Another Luffy in the package is Luffy Taro, and here we have clear synergy with Sanji and Pudding. Especially if we go first and we reach 7 Dawn and play Luffy Taro on curve, use the on-play effect with Dawn -1, we play up to 1 purple Straw Hat type crew card character with a cost of 5 or less from our hand together with Luffy Taro. And as you can see, Sanji and Pudding has indeed Straw Hat crew in the type, and it's a purple character. So in a sense, we are developing 2 very strong bodies on our 7 Dawn turn, and on top of that, most of the time we will directly draw a card from the on-play effect because we pay the cost of the Luffy Taro first, and then when we use leader's effect, we will have 2 Dawn active from the leader and then 1 from Sanji Pudding. So on 7 Dawn turn we can develop 7 cost body, 5 cost body and 3 cost body. Very, very broken. And on top of that, draw 1 card. But there is one more character card that is purple and Straw Hat that we can play off Luffy Taro or simply on our second turn going second, and this is Zorojuro. And Zorojuro is already known card from the starter deck 18 until now played in Purple Luffy, and he goes into the category of the searchers that I have prepared here. So this is very interesting because in a sense in this deck we are able to play 4 searchers. Starting with Nami, this is just the classic Nami search, top 5, 1 Straw Hat other than Nami, 1k counter, 2000 power, nothing crazy here, but what's important, she's printed in the color green and is one of our strongest searchers because she searches really deep, 5 cards deep to be exact. Then we have the Zorojuro that also looks at top 5 cards, and we reveal up to one purple Straw Hat Crew type card. So this is important that the card must be purple, so we cannot add any green Straw Hats. So Zoro cannot search for Nami, but Nami can search for the Zoro. Then we have the 1 cost event, also very strong early search, that is look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and reveal up to one Straw Hat Crew, Kid Pirates or Heart Pirates type card and add to the hand. So it's a weaker Nami, and also this is just the event, so we have no body. A big plus is the trigger, so sometimes when we take life, we can trigger it for a free card into hand that we might need for our turn. And last card that I call Searcher, but it's actually a card draw, is the Merry-Go stage. And this is interesting because this is the stage that refunds itself by drawing you a card on play, and then activate main if you rested and the number of Dawn cards on your field is equal or less than the number on your opponent's field. Up to one of your Straw Hat Crew type characters gain +2 cost until the end of your opponent's next turn. So what it basically means, if you play Sanji Pudding on curve, let's say against black deck, and you directly use the effect, you know that you have less Dawn or equal to your opponent on field. Then you can use Merry-Go to rise up the cost of Sanji Pudding by 2 and be a little bit safer from the removal. What is also interesting about this card is that you can chain Merry-Go. If you have one stage already on board, another one in hand, you can use Merry-Go effect to raise +2 cost. So for Sanji Pudding it will be already 7. Then for the one Dawn, play another Merry-Go, rest it, and raise the cost again up to 9, and so on and so on. So something that might be useful for you in the black matchups. There is also a small topic to speak about: in which order should we play our searchers. I will speak about it later in our early turns explanation and board state analysis. Next we have the 2k counters. I have really classic ones here. The 6 cost 6000 power Sanji, that is a blocker, and if we have at least 2 less Dawn than our opponent, then we can play him for 3 cost from our hand. And also we have Usohachi, that is the utility, 2k counter on play. If we have 8 or more Dawn cards on field, we can rest one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So you want to go for a game, you want to rest the blocker, no problem, just play Usohachi and push. And here I would like to show you the list that I'm referencing in this video. This is very popular list from Japan. I will explain the next cards in a moment, but for some of you they might be controversial, especially if you saw many different lists from the West already. So this list is mostly refined for the upcoming OP11 meta, especially Blue Purple Luffy, but I like to explain the idea and game plan of Green Purple Luffy with those cards. But after we finish discussing this list, I have some additional tech choices that you can use, and then I will show you one list adjusted more for the West. So for now, let's continue and discuss the next card choices. So next we have our ramp engine, and this is Frankie and Tone Chopper. For Frankie, it's really interesting card because in a sense it's Zorojuro Ramper, but in my opinion much better. First of all, 1k counter, 3 cost, 4000 power, and a Straw Hat Crew type. And here we have on play and when attacking, if your leader has the Straw Hat Crew type and the number of Dawn cards on your field is equal to or less than the number of your opponent's field, add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and rest it. So why do we play the Ramper like that? First of all, if we play against any matchup that is ramping really quick, we can match the tempo of them by also ramping with Frankie and with Sanji Pudding and so on. But here is something that I will discuss later. The interaction between Frankie being free cost and on our 5-Dawn turn when going first, when we use Sanji and Pudding, we get the Dawn back, and in total with Leader's effect we have 3 Dawn. So this is the perfect time to play the Frankie, to use the on-play effect and get full Dawn refund. And this might not seem like important now, but trust me, later when I will show you the board state situation, there is something really spicy that we can do afterwards on the turn after. Another card that is interesting, and not everyone is playing it, is the Tony Tony Chopper blocker. So this is Champ blocker. What is important, it's a 2 cost. And on play, he's also the ramper, because if the number of Dawn cards on your field is equal or less to the number of your opponent's field, add up to 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and rest it. So basically the same on play as Frankie. Here, something that might be weird for other players that maybe didn't watch the anime is that this is only Animal and Foxy Pirates type. So we have no Straw Hat Crew, and we know that Leader's effect requires the board to have only Straw Hat Crew characters. That's why some players decide not to play this Chopper. But I think it's important to have him in the deck, especially that if you on 5 Dawn play Sanji Pudding, then you have 3 Dawn to play, for example, Chopper for 2, and then for 1 Dawn either the Searcher or Merry Go, and so on. And you will most likely block with him anyway. And if it so happens that your opponent decides to starve you and not attack to prevent you from using effect the next turn, we also have some play in mind to mitigate that. So don't be afraid, Chopper is a good card, but if you decide otherwise, you can always replace him with other Champ blocker, no problem here. And then moving on into the events, we have the classic defensive events, Gum Gum Giant, broken card, 1 Dawn, you get 4000 power, sure you need to return 2 Dawn and trash a card, but this is worth it as we already know from the Purple Luffy. And then we have Gum Gum Jet Gatling, we play a lot of bricks in the deck, so cards without the counter, and then 0 cost event like that, that will give us 3000 power by trashing 1 additional card. Makes a lot of sense, and also the trigger sometimes might be useful, especially against aggro matchups, that you ramp the Dawn faster, and it's also an active Dawn, so might be even used to play the Giant the same turn if needed. And the last card is basically the flex slot in my opinion, especially in the West. I think we don't need this card yet, but this is something interesting to consider. So Demonic Aura, and the name really long as every Zoro attack, cost 2 Dawn. So here already we see that we pay 2 Dawn, so we rest 2 Dawn, our leaders restand 2 Dawn, you see the pattern, right? And activate main, or rather activate event, one of your leader or character cards gets plus 3000 power during this turn. So we play this card when we want to push damage. Then you may rest one of your characters with a cost of 3 or more. If you do, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, so most likely blocker that is preventing our push. And this is really interesting. There is nice combo for this card that I will show later in the board state, and the trigger rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So something like Punk Gibson, if I remember correctly, might be useful when your opponent is pushing for the game. And then I have for you some deck choices, something to consider. 2k counters, we play only 8 copies. In this deck I would play between 8 up to 10 2k counters depending on your strategy. And here are some popular choices. So the backup 3 cost character, some players decide to play this Usohachi, also nice effect, the backup card for resting 4 cost or less, and something to play on 3 Dawn, especially against aggro matchups. And then we have green Sanji, that is also interesting 2k counter. It's just 4 cost 5000 power, but with Dawn attached, this character gains plus 1000 power for every 3 of your rested Dawn cards. So also nice synergy with how the deck wants to be played. And main reason for inclusion might be if you want to have more targets for the 4 Dawn turn going second and not only rely on finding the Zorojuro, even though we play a lot of searchers. Next we have something that I call anti-aggro package, or maybe because of the Gamma Knife more of a board control package. So Roronoa Zoro, same reason as Sanji if you need more 4 cost characters. Here 5000 power stat line, not the best. Zorojuro still has the better stat line, but let's say if you play against an aggro deck, they have already 2 or more characters on board. This character can attack characters on the turn in which it is played. So this is pseudo rush. And on play effect, if your leader has the Straw Hat crew type, our leader is Luffy, so obviously he has, rest up to one of your opponent characters with a cost of 4 or less. So very nice to get some early control of the board, especially against decks like Zoro. So Zoro is countering Zoro, but this one is green and we are countering the red one. Then we have card that is overall useful, and I noticed that in the West we prefer to play this card over the event of Demonic Aura, if I remember the name correctly. Yes, so like I said, this is the flex slot, and I see we like the Electrical Luna a lot in the West, and it makes sense because just for free Dawn we are freezing the whole board of characters of cost 7 or less, and also interesting trigger just to rest one of your opponent's characters. So again, a chance if they decide to push us for the game, maybe lucky trigger to rest one of the attackers. And great against any aggro deck, just freeze the board and maybe you can even out aggro the aggro. And then the last card, Gamma Knife. So it was said that green Purple Luffy is being countered by green decks that play 8 cost kit because we don't play any that big of the characters. So with Gamma Knife we kind of solve the situation because Dawn -1, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 5000 power during this turn. So for example, Kit will be just 3000 power, very easy to clear. And the trigger, again, ramp like the 0 cost event, add up to 1 card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So maybe some early lucky trigger and we can play our Sanji and Pudding early, start the engine and dominate the game. And then, like I said, we have some other blocker choices. If you want to go into direction of being defensive in the late game with a 3 cost blocker character, Nico Robin has a Straw Hat type. So on KO, if we return 1 Dawn, we check top 3 cards on our deck, then reveal 1 Straw Hat crew type and add to the hand. And this is important if we are fishing for the Gum Gum Giant. Then we have 1 attack can be blocked, then we maybe find a giant, and so on and so on. We start chaining the giants, defending huge attacks, no problem, but for a cost of -1 Dawn. On the other hand, we have the blocker that I think not many players play right now. That is 2 cost, so we can maybe fit it better in our curve. But this is the blocker without any additional effect, just with 1k counter, but Straw Hat crew type. From all of them, I still think Chopper is the best, and I will explain it in a moment. But I also saw players have success with Nico Robin, especially if you have Frankie in your deck. You don't really care returning the Dawn because then your engine is running Sanji, Pudding, Frankie. You are getting the Dawn back. And the list I would like to reference for the updated version targeting the West meta is the one from Straw Hats Are Cool. And they introduced the cards that I just said in the tech option. So we see Green Zoro, 2 copies to fight aggro. Also Electrical Luna, like said previously, 7 cost, a lot of impactful cards for the 7 cost or lower if they get rested you just freeze them, and then the rest looks pretty normal, and also the Usohachi. So we see the split, 4 cards for the free cost, and Usohachi if we count him, but he's more utility. And then for the 4 cost we see 4 copies of Zorojuro in the nice alt art, and then the green Zoro 2 supplement. So very consistent list in my eyes, although the one that I shown from Japan has a little bit different ratios, but this is the beauty of the deck. You can build it however you see fit for your current meta. I'm very happy to see the blocker Chopper, and very happy to see Luffy Taro, and this I will explain in a moment why those 2 cards are important. So let's move to the turn by turn plays and how to do some simple combos. So if we go first, normally we want to see Sanji and Pudding to have coverage for our 5-don turn. And if we don't have Sanji and Pudding in our opening hand, then obviously we want to play one of our searchers to find it. But here comes the question, which searcher should we play and in which order? So what you need to understand is that Sanji and Pudding you will be playing on the 5-don turn. In a sense, we don't have any stable or set in stone 3-don play. We have some options. As always, we can attach the Don to the leader on our 3-don turn and just jam. What we can do, like in the old days, we can play Nami early to search for our Sanji and Pudding, and then on the next turn we can swing with Monkey D. Luffy and then attach 3-don to Nami for the swing. As well, there is also an option of playing Going Merry to draw a card and set up the stage. And lastly, we have the search event. So normally what I would do here, if we don't have any idea or pressure to attack on the second turn with Nami, we can keep Nami in hand. And instead of it, it might be much more impactful to play Going Merry. Because then we are drawing a card that we would draw anyway, and then we draw another at the start of the turn. And then we can decide what we want to do on our 3-don turn. So if we move to the 3-don turn directly, let's say we didn't draw anything that we want to play on 5-don, we still have a lot of Don to use to search for our key card, that is Sanji and Pudding. So normally rule of thumb, you want to go from the lowest search to the highest. So here we don't even search, we start by drawing a card to see our draws first and then decide. The only exception is if we are desperate that we can't find our card, then sure, you start to spam Nami. If you don't have Nami, then you spam the event, just to ensure Sanji and Pudding on 5-don for most cases. Now for the 5-don turn, it's really interesting and powerful turn for the deck, especially if you are able to secure Sanji and Pudding. So obviously we want to play Sanji and Pudding to make the best use of 5-don, and here it depends. Most of the time, if you have Frankie and Chopper in hand, you just use the effect of the leader and then combine it with the effect of Sanji Pudding. In some games, you might notice that it's better not to use the effect. Example would be if I have Luffy Taro and another Sanji Pudding or target in hand. It's because if we use the Sanji Pudding now together with Luffy, next turn we will be at 6-don, so we can't play the Luffy Taro that we have in hand. But let's say we have perfect scenario, so we have Frankie, Chopper or Mary in hand. We played Sanji Pudding, we use leader's effect, so we need to return to Don, restand 2, and then Sanji Pudding, we add 1 Dawn as active. So as you can see, we are back at 4 Dawn. Like I said, the next turn will be 6 Dawn. But now is interesting situation because we are at the same Dawn quantity as our opponent. So if we directly play Frankie, we will be ramping 1 Dawn. That will be rested. So we are back at 5 Dawn and we develop 2 powerful characters for the next turn. And if everything sticks here, it will be very disgusting. Our leader is obviously 6000 power now. And the next turn, like I said, Luffy package, if we have Luffy Taro, we are doing disgusting things. But let's say that we don't have the Frankie. We are in the spot with the 3 active Dawn. Something interesting we can do, and also against black decks, we can use the stage to pump the cost of Sanji and Pudding. I think I can't pump the cost here, but let's imagine it's the 7 cost now. And then we play Merry-Go over Merry-Go for 1 Dawn, rest it, and pump it to the 9 cost. So really hard to remove for any black deck, especially without Ice Age now. And we still have this 2 Magic Dawn that I mentioned to play Chopper. And Chopper will also give us the rested Dawn in this situation. So we are again back on 5. So the next turn will be 7. Very powerful number, especially if Sanji and Pudding stick on board. And then we have 7 Dawn turn, where we have the broken situation that I mentioned during discussing the Luffy Taro pick. If we are able to have the perfect board like that, even if they clear it, but we have now the magic 7 Dawn on board. And if we manage to have Luffy Taro and Sanji Pudding, at this point the game is basically won. So sometimes it might be even better if we have only this package in hand to maybe postpone Sanji and Pudding and play a 4 cost on 5 Dawn. But this is very specific, let's not go into this direction. Let's stay on the basic guidance. Because here, what we now created with the simple play of 2 cards, either Frankie or Chopper together with Sanji Pudding, is very powerful turn. So we are at 7 Dawn, opponent is at 6. If I play Luffy Taro here, use the effect, Dawn -1. Chach. Then I play from Luffy Taro, Sanji and Pudding. On play effect, I draw a card. So I played 2 cards from hand, get 1 from the deck, no problem. Then I use Leader's effect, because my board is only Straw Hats. So we return 2 Dawn, restand 2, and now take a look how many triggers happen. Sanji and Pudding 1. We return it 2, so we get 1 back. Sanji and Pudding 2. Another 1 back. So we have 2, 4, 6. Our opponent is also 6. And on top of that, sure, we can use 4 Dawn however we so fit. We can play whatever. But now, Frankie, if he attacks, you can attach Dawn or not, depending on the situation, will give us another Dawn, but it will be rested. So we see 2, 4, 6, again back to 7. So we stay on our curve and we are doing disgusting plays. But you might say, okay, what with the situation when we are stuck with a Chopper on board? If your opponent is not attacking you because of this small little blocker, then it's a good news. Because on your turn, you will play Luffy Taro anyway and develop 2 bodies for the 7 cost. Sure, we need to return the Dawn. There is no rush to use the Leader's effect here, because, okay, they didn't attack, you are 1 life ahead and you are still developing the board, and you will draw a card from Sanji and Pudding because of Luffy Taro. And the next turn you are 2, 4, 6, 8 done, which is even more disgusting, and they need to start attacking. If Chopper stays on board, or maybe you have more characters on board before you play Luffy Taro, maybe you have double Nami and so on the next turns you can simply play something over the Chopper, but it will be really unlikely that your opponent will stop attacking you because it doesn't make sense, because they are only postponing their own winning strategy by pushing the green purple Luffy. If you are able to develop Sanji Pudding, Luffy Taro, Sanji Pudding, leader's effect doesn't matter in this turn. You can just do it next turn, no problem. Even if they go very wide, they didn't clear the blocker, so blocker stays. Life saved and blocker on board. So you mitigate already 2 attacks by just playing one little blocker. But then for the next turns, it's a little bit more matchup dependent and how the cards will be dealt to you. So it's not so straightforward to explain higher down turns. But if you are able to achieve one of those goals of early Sanji Pudding or Luffy Taro, you are in a very good spot. And like I said, if you have Luffy Taro and Sanji Pudding, maybe postpone the Sanji Pudding. Maybe don't play them on the 5 down turn. Maybe play 4 cost character, one of the Zoros, and then make the power play with Luffy Taro, Sanji and Pudding. This is very powerful combo. A lot of people don't recognize it. And now let's speak about going second curve, and then I will show some small interaction for finishing the game. So going second curve, to keep things simple, we need Zoro, Juro or any other 4-drop, but Zoro Juro has the best stat line and it's also the searcher, so it's preferred in your opening hand to ensure that your 4 down turn is really powerful. In case that we need to search for him, we have only 1 turn to search. So we want to really take our chances to find the 4 cost character. Therefore, spamming Nami here might be preferred to dig deep, 10 cards deep to get the 4 cost on curve. So then on 4 down turn, we start something that you might refer to as 4-5-4. If you see someone mentioning 4-5-4 regarding green purple Luffy, it means that they want to play 4 cost on 4 down turn. Then we move to the next turn and we have already 6 done. So if we play Sanji and Pudding, activate the effect of the leader, return 2, resend 2, Sanji Pudding effect, so 1 more done. This one left over done makes 4 again. So we can play another 4 cost character. Simple as that. Turn 3 and we already have 6k, 6k and 7k on board, or per cost 4, 5, 4. Very simple, very powerful, and take a look what just happened. After all this operation, obviously leader is 6000 power, we have 2, 4, 5 done on board. So what happens the next turn? If we want to 7-drop Luffy, Luffy Taro to be exact, or any other powerful character. But if we are able to get into this board state, there is really little that our opponent can do to stop us. So very powerful start. That's why we can afford to play double Nami, find our pieces, and then proceed accordingly. And the Zoro Juro that we play on the second turn, going second, can also find us Sanji Pudding or multiple copies. And at the end I have for you the finisher that I promised. Something interesting that you can do, let's say, against blocker Sabo. It's the 5 cost using the event card, and let's put into the mix Rusher Luffy, why not? So we have Nami on board and we want to finish the game, but we have blocker that is really effective. But what we can do to rest him is to play our Casual Luffy here, no problem. And let's say we are at 8 dawn, so we have 2 dawn left to play the event. But you might say, yeah, it's not efficient because I need to rest one of my 3 cost or more characters and I have only Nami and Luffy. So the final attack will be not so high. But here is something very cool you can do using Going Merry. So Going Merry gives one of our Straw Hat type +2 cost until end of our opponent's next turn. The only condition is that we need to have equal on less dawn, but at the 8th game, most of the time we will have the condition met. So we can rest the Going Merry to raise Nami cost +2. So now she's a free cost, and apparently the event is really good. We play the event, gain plus 3000 power, for example, here. So we have 10k push, and then we can rest the character that is 3 cost or more. So we rest Nami to rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost 5 or less. So we rest Sabo, and apparently now we can on top obviously use the effect of the Luffy to be even more dawn efficient. So -2, restant 2, Luffy 6, and we can do some disgusting swings. So here 10k, okay, we can start 6, no problem. If there is no worry for any trigger, or just go directly 10, pay, return to pay the cost to restand him, and then another 10. So we made 2 10k pushes just with 2 cards and by utilizing the stage and Nami if they were on the board to rest the blocker and make our opponent defenseless. Obviously the same we can do with 2k counter Usopp. He can also rest the blockers, but here we have this extra push by buffing of 3000 power to our character or leader, and we can utilize it to finish the games when the opponent tries to hide behind the blocker. And that's it for today. I hope this video helped you to understand Green Purple Luffy a little bit better, especially if you are a new or beginner player. I know that it might be hard to grasp the new ideas, new builds, and catch up with the meta, but now it's the turn for you. Please let me know if you maybe have some interesting strategies for Green Purple Luffy. Maybe you play some card that I didn't mention. Let me know in the comments below, or if you have any other questions that I didn't answer in this video. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.